I'm Holly Waters-Marsh from Urban Fox Marketing. I'm speaking to Swapan today, the CEO of Dply, to answer your questions. Today we're looking beyond EUDR to cover what else you need to know to comply in your supply chain for natural products specifically. We'll be covering how to implement the appropriate document processes to meet the obligations of different regulations, what the current bottlenecks are and how to overcome them, and the impact of not having transparency and traceability in your supply chain. We want to focus on how important transparency and traceability are in the supply chain. We've talked a lot about EUDR in the first 3 episodes because of the media coverage it has received and the looming deadline, which is the end of the year. But actually, the subject is a lot wider than that. At the heart of this subject are the environmental concerns and ethical sourcing. For example, globally, illegal logging is in the top 3 of transnational crimes, which has an impact on local communities, the economy, and ultimately the environment. Technology can have a huge impact on improving transparency to deal with such situations. So there are a lot of areas that we're going to be exploring over the next couple of weeks. But just before we move away from EUDR to a wider subject, as it's still very much a hot topic, I want to look at what is the latest news on the EU delay. So the first question back to you, Swapan, is what is the latest news?
Yeah, okay. Many thanks for the introduction. Indeed, EUDR is the key regulation now for the deforestation and degradation of forests. And as you have mentioned, yeah, the illegal activities which are happening since years are still happening, yeah, and we'll cover in the next discussion also the history of EUDR. But now to come back, the recap on the EUDR. So there were a lot of informations coming from different, sources that 15th of October will be the date that there will be announcement by the Commission. So what is the proposal? Yeah. So the consideration of delay, it has been just mentioned, based on the technical issues related to the IT system, to traces, is, I think, now under internal the consideration of the Commission, because from the first point of the traces and the IT system, obviously, you can argue not every IT system is perfect and always could be just better. But when we look what's happening, there are hundreds of thousands DDSs being processed. Yeah, so it's working. And in the recent the communications by the technical representatives, it was confirmed. Yeah, a number of companies are using it, and basically we don't have any substantial issues. We're thinking about, once this traffic will grow, maybe there can be some impacts. Yeah, but it's IT. We are having a lot of portals. And each of us, having on his smartphone, I think, a lot of apps. So everything is working. Yeah. So from a technology point of view, it's simply to be fixed. Yeah. I think more important is, and that what we will also discuss. Today, the supply chain stakeholders understood. Once deploying the obligations under EUDR, that they are building really a transparency in their supply chains. Yeah, and needless to emphasize once again, EUDR is in force from June 1st, 2023. Yeah, so we're today 27 months from the date of enforcement, and there are really thousands of companies which are using the system already, and there are other thousands which we are getting in the final stage, getting prepared as it was announced. Yeah. So when we look at it, any discussions about a delay wouldn't impact the activity of all those who are in the process. I mean, it's obvious that nobody will get a risk in his company to see what will happen in December 2025. So, what the level of the final decision by the EU Parliament will be. Yeah? I mean, so what we observe as well, and everything is moving on, it's going on. And so I think the Commission is asking themselves maybe a question once they're considering this. I mean, delay. So why the delay is needed and for whom? Yeah. So we know that on the table there are some discussions about the small forest owners within EU. Yeah. Maybe this topic will be addressed. We don't know. Yeah. But to make a short summary of that. It is still unknown what's going to happen. So the recommendation, which we are giving every day to everyone, just keep going on and stay compliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. That's very clear. And yeah, we just need to watch that space, don't we? Okay, so back to our other questions then. So the first one, Swapan, is how can companies implement the appropriate document processes to meet the obligations of different regulations?
Yeah. We need to put a little bit, step back and get to the times of COVID and understand how important is a supply chain, how important are the processes, and what were the impacts when some supply chains were simply just broken. Yeah. So from that perspective, the focus on how supply chains are today are being organized is at a much higher level of attention of the senior management in every company than it was just few years ago prior to the COVID times. Yeah. So by saying that, we now are getting to the point that on one side we are looking to keep our business simply running and just deliver what we have planned to do. And for that, we need a robust, well organized, and stable supply chain, right? So, more and more attention is here, not only coming from different regulations. We will talk in some time about the next regulation, which is coming from January 1st, 2027, which is a digital product passport, basically a history of a product. Yeah. So in some countries already outside EU, it's applicable. So yeah, the entire processes in the supply chains are based on the understanding that they are very strategic for every company. And we're not talking today as in the past, we're looking at who is our supplier and obviously who is our buyer. But now we're looking at the entire supply chains. And it is related also to the point which you mentioned at the beginning. So the ethical sourcing is key. And especially when we talk about natural products, we know that there are a lot of issues around how to get the right data to get compliant.
Yeah. Okay. And what are the current bottlenecks and how can they be overcome?
The current bottlenecks in the supply chain, I would say, are related to the processes which are in place. So there are different certifications around where the processes are looking at the general, processes which are applied in a supply chain. Yeah. So, which is good, obviously, because we're having, a number of boxes we need to just tag. Yeah. So the due diligence process is related to not only the material, but also to the company. Yeah. So the legality of the company, the responsible recruitment and fair labor, which we know in different places of the world, there are issues. Yeah. So we need to take care of all the processes which are happening at the sourcing or at the next levels of production that we can say were ethical, and we're looking really that our suppliers are keeping to our requirements. Yeah? So it is a very complex process. And the question is good, I mean, today that more and more companies understand it.
Yeah, definitely. And what is the impact of not having transparency and traceability in your supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, here this topic I think is for a separate session with the CFOs, yeah,
Mm.
the controllers, where I'm sure that in every responsible organization, they need to look at scenarios if they got any disturbance in their supply chain, which could be caused by, as an example, non-compliance in a delivery from one of the sources. Yeah. So we need to look at it. What are the impacts on our business and how we can mitigate those risks? And from the financial, I mean, perspective, it's related. So how to impact our business in our company? Did we do any accruals for that? Yeah. And obviously we know in business, any accrual is simply hitting our bottom line. Yeah. So better get the processes in place than do accruals. Yeah. So I believe it's a really top management issue now to understand all these specifics and all the impacts and how do we address them in our organization.
Mhm. Great. On to some further questions now then from the audience. How can we prepare ourselves to meet these supply chain obligations?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we're moving from understanding what we need to do and why we need to do it to the points how we're going to do it. Yeah. So obviously, the first level we should keep to the processes which are today in place to getting whatever level of certifications. Yeah. So if we're in the timber industry, we can be FSC certified, PFC certified. If we're in any other industry, we have different ISO certifications. Yeah. So any level of certifications is the first gate which we need to pass in order to get to the next levels, because we're getting a general a certification which is proving that our organization has processes in place. Yeah, but obviously the issues and the topic is really how we do it to secure the processes within the entire, I mean, supply chain. So this is what we're saying. Not today looking at our suppliers and our buyers only, but looking at the entire supply chain. And here we need to dig in really a lot of details to make it understandable and make it customizable also to that particular organization which we're looking at.
Mm. Okay. Another one, what problems in traditional supply chains does digital traceability aim to solve?
I mean, digitalization here is key because it helps us really to get to automation, get to easiness of data collection and data and analysis. Yeah. So here it's important to, I mean, mention there is a lot of systems and solutions on the market claiming, we're automating this process, we're using AI. Yeah? So for doing that. In real life, the recommendation is ask what is really being done by the AI. Yeah? Because today you can't assess the documentation you're gathering by AI because it is legally not acceptable. And even the AI engines can't, they're not at the level that they can absorb this task. It's more about, getting automation of some processes. It's more about the initial check of some documentation. For example, you can link the receipt of a certificate with the database of the certificates. Yeah. So somebody is, within the entire supply chain saying, okay, I'm certified, here's the copy of my certification. So you can link with the databases appropriate of that certification and say, okay, yes, we know exactly it's there. So this AI, tools can help, or any automation. I mean, tools. I can say from practice, I've seen in real life certificates which were under adjustments in a PDF. Yeah. So today you will not find this one any IT AI systems which can just find so small differences, for example, extending the date of the validity of the certificate. This you can check with a database, but you can't have a AI check of this PDF who'll find it out. So yeah, it's a very robust and complex is process, but it's important that we understand it, and we'll look at what are the available IT tools on the market and how they address these issues.
Great. And how do you think traceability will define the next decade in timber trade and natural products in general?
Natural product traceability and transparency of the data, the collection is the most complex. Yeah? We know it in the timber industry, but also other natural products. It's much more is complex. Yeah, if we think about rubber industry and the processes, how we're producing I mean rubber until we see it on our tire, for example. Yeah, we need to understand it's very complex, and the traceability is not so easy as in other products which are being produced on a production line, yeah, where it's easy to code a product and then have a traceability on that code. Yeah, but still, you were mentioning at the beginning that, there are different groups of products which are under crime. Yeah, so obviously the product counterfeiting in general is the biggest issue. So we can still see the nice item of a handbag with a nice label with the barcode which is appropriate, but still it's fake. Yeah. So we need to go more in depth depending on our business, and try to find out, if we're in the natural products, how to address this issue. And we need to have a separate session on the technology, how to understand it and how to address it. Yeah, it's very specific, just product by product.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what is the strategic advantage of complying if I don't have to? Isn't it just a cost to my business?
And that depends on the management of the company, if they see it as a cost or they see it as a value. Yeah, so we're seeing more and more companies see it as a value, as a competitive advantage, as building their brand. Every business wants to grow, and we can only grow if we get more clients, wherever we are in the supply chain. Yeah, and our clients need to be convinced that we're the right supplier. So one of the key differentiators today will be the ethical sourcing and transparency of a supply chain. Yeah. So if we can say that we're compliant with different regulations in different, countries, for sure we will build our brand reputation. So my recommendation is here, irrespective if we talk about EUTR, which is in place, and we know the history, EUDR, which is coming, and digital product. Passport. We can just mention different other. So just get compliant in your supply chain, and you will address all the regulations which are or are on the way to come.
And do you have any examples of companies that have been found out for not complying with EUTR, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are few. As we know, UTR is in force already for many years. And just my personal opinion is that one of the reason why timber was added to the EUDR, because it was not at the beginning as a commodity there. So at the beginning, the commodities which were listed under EUDR were other, not timber, but timber was added because it's mostly focusing on the legality of the sourcing and getting the due diligence processes in place. Yeah. The topic is about the country specifics, how to understand what due diligence processes need to be in place, the documentation, the gathering, the understanding of the due diligence documentation, which should be linked with the country of origin. We know every countries have their own specific regulations and rules. It is a complex process, and if under EUTR you're getting a notification that an audit will come in 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, you have enough time to try to prepare yourself. Don't get me wrong, yeah. And there is not much focus. All the cases you can easily find them on the internet. Yeah, if you find someone who was charged on illegal timber, sourcing, and paid a fine in thousands of euros. Doesn't make, I would say, big noise around it. Yeah. So for sure, under EUDR, the regulation is more strict, especially on the due diligence statements where you are presenting your declarations in a system, so the documentation is there. So you cannot wait for an audit and prepare yourself. Here basically you're audited what you have delivered. So that is the core. The difference. And those who are understanding that and already are compliant, and as I said at the beginning, are moving on with the UDR process, for sure they will win a great competitive advantage if still somebody will take a chance for example, getting a delay and not getting compliant for some time. Yeah. I strongly believe that those who are already on the right track will just gain out of it.
And I think you've touched on it already, but what are the current challenges under EUTR?
The current challenges are just related to the documentation which needs to be gathered in the due diligence processes. Yeah, we know number of companies which under EUTR are receiving, I don't know, 50 megabytes of 100 PDF files. Yeah, where we transfer and don't really understand how to categorize them, how to assess them. So this is one of the first, topics to be discussed with a company which is moving to EUDR. So how today I'm handling the collection of the documentation in a appropriate way, enabling me to do the right audit because I am responsible. And obviously, under EUDR, the responsible is more strict. Yeah. So I'm now responsible. So the practices I was using under EUTR, I need really to adjust to the new requirements.
Okay. What is the difference between product traceability and transaction traceability? What impact does it have?
Yeah, and I think the best example is here in the timber industry, because that question is asked at every webinar which we organize or other organizations are organizing, and the stakeholders of the supply chains are asking. So my company is certified FSC and PFC. Why do I need EUDR? Yeah. And the answer is, I mean, simple. Yeah, you're certified as a company, which is great. So you should have the processes in place. Now we're talking how you're dealing with the transaction level of the compliance. Yeah. So from a general certification and understanding what are the processes in the company, you need to now use them in addressing every transaction, and that's totally different, and that is the key for the future understanding what means getting compliance in the entire, I mean, supply chain. So how a stakeholder, which is at the top of the supply chain, can easily understand that within the entire supply chain, the sourcing of the material on a transaction level is secure, accurate, and he can get approval of that. And that you can do only once you're focusing on the transparency on a transaction level within the entire supply chain and using the appropriate IT systems which can handle it for you.
Okay, great. And then from a brand's point of view, how does traceability enhance end consumer trust and loyalty?
I think I mentioned that, and I can confirm that once we're talking and having our projects outside of EU on the EUDR part, and not only on the supply chain, I mean compliance as well for those who are not exporting to EU. It's more that they understand that, yeah, I mean, they don't have obligation, let's say, under EUDR, but they still want to keep all the records accurate to attract their brand to sell more to the clients within EU. Yeah, so that's exactly what is the right way from my perspective of the ownership or management of the company. Yeah, so just get the processes in place, and it will just help you to build the confidence within your supply chain and grow your business. So there are two recommendations always which I'm giving. Yeah. So first, what to do to get compliant? Ask your buyer. Yeah. Ask your buyer and what he's expecting from you. Yeah. And then expect it from your supplier, etc. Until the source. Yeah. So this is the first, and the second thing. How do I grow my company? How do I grow my business? How do I grow my top line? And one of the best practices today, just build your brand on sustainability.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, well, we're out of time already, but thank you again, everybody, for your questions. So what we've talked about today is how important transparency and traceability are in the supply chain for natural products specifically. And we've also talked about the wider picture outside of EUDR. Swapan mentioned how important it is to have a digital traceability system to support the processes and how it's necessary to comply with supply chain obligations and as well how they can bring a competitive advantage. So join us next Thursday again at 9:30, and we are going to be answering your questions. Next time, we'll be focusing on technology behind traceability and how data moves along the value chain. So that's going to be a really interesting, good one. So thank you so much again. See you next week.
Thank you.